we have like a general process that we go through, but we actually are going to be coming out with a process that we're using called the ADAPT framework, which is actually going to be a five-stage program. And why we have that is because what's happening is we're trying to build products, or we're building these workflows in the companies. But one of the things that we kind of
ability, and being able to do something at scale gives you like incredible amounts of knowledge that other people don't have. So if you do something well for law firms and you have all this data, your AI is going to be ultimately better than people who are just coming off the street and trying to do it because they think it's cool, right?
service interaction and actually maybe initiate a return, or actually take an order, or a closing agent, like an agent that's able to actually go and close. They seem to hit limitations there, particularly from the tools that are out of the box, the platforms that do that. So what we end up having to do is we have to work with them, and we have to actually start looking at a little bit more of a custom workflow development.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of What About AI Agents. Today we have Dustin Jensen. Dustin is an AI growth strategist that specializes in AI for business growth. Over 20 years, he has been in marketing and sales, and he assists companies with AI adoption. So, really, Dustin, I'd like to hand it over to you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the things that you're doing and things that you're excited about, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of a background. Thank you for having me here. Yeah, my background is about 20 years in marketing and sales and business growth. I've been part of several startups, and more recently, I've been working as a fractional executive for several different companies. Since about 2017, I have had a passion for AI. At that time, I always would look at like the overall funnel system for marketing, and I just always was always asking myself, like, this is a lot of these tasks, this outreach, and a lot of these things are just seemed a bit manual. Even though we had there's a lot of automation tools and stuff like that. I just felt like it didn't scale as well as it could. Of course, in marketing, you're always looking to target people, and if you can target people on a personal level, obviously that can increase the conversions. But in 2017, all I could do is philosophically think about that. I mean, there were AI tools, but not really, not anything you could really use. And then, of course, when ChatGPT came out, we really started seeing the power of generative AI. It started to open that door, but in my perspective, maybe only the last 8 months. I kind of say around December, did it really feel like we were moving into an era where we could actually deploy these agents and start scaling up these workflows. So just to kind of give you context to where I'm at now I'm the founder of AIAsystem. We call it the AI Factory, which is made up of two parts. You just introduced me as an AGS, an AI Growth Strategist. My job is to go out and interact with the customers and the clients in the market, and just to basically workflow discovery. I'm just trying to find the workflows, understand the workflows, and distill them down to where we can actually deploy these systems into those workflows to actually give them, the agentic workflow. And then the other part of the AI Factory is obviously the development side. We have a small team of highly efficient developers that keep up with the tools and trends daily, because obviously the space is moving. It changes almost daily. I think almost every day there's a debate on them debating on, oh, did you try out the new Claude model? And I think Google is right now Gemini. I prefer that, or Codex. From ChatGPT. They're always kind of debating which one is the best and which one they like. So, but that brings us up till today. That's what we're working on.
Right, and from what I understand, you have a four-step method that you use for the structured adoption of AI. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, actually, five. So, we have like a general process that we go through, but we actually are going to be coming out with a process that we're using called the ADAPT framework, which is actually going to be a 5 stage program. And why we have that is because what's happening is we're trying to build products, or we're building these workflows in the companies. But one of the things that we kind of run into is, uh, a lot of these companies, enterprises realize that AI is here. They need to deploy AI. We have a lot of the tools and capability to deploy these tools to create these agentic workflows, but somewhere in there, there's this gap for adoption, and we struggle. And so even though, so we have to kind of go into these organizations as almost a consultant, even though we're an actual developer. We're not trying to just give high level strategy. We're trying to deploy. We have to kind of come in as a consultant,
Mm.
which it's easy for me because I've done fractional work, so I know exactly how to go through that process. So the adapt framework, I mean, it makes sense because it's a that's a big part of AI right now. It's just learning how to adapt as things change. And that program it's pretty simple. It's just A is for like assess. So that's part of that workflow discovery, discovering the organization, information flows, things like that. Then we go into differentiate, which is how we start combining human and AI together to help your company start growing. Then we go to acquire. That's kind of where we really step in. Acquiring means they need to gain the education gap. They need to know what tools they need, what they need to do in the organization, get the right development team on there, start building out the workflows. Transform, or not transform, I'm sorry. The next part is pivot, which is just now they can shift their business models, and then transform is where they actually go in and transform their talent or their staff. Start training their staff to start deploying these systems, or hire in strategic positions to be able to deploy these new workflows.
And how do you identify like high impact use cases or areas where the AI will get implemented in these companies?
Well, the thing that we try to do is the way we try to identify them is we go in in that discovery process, we start a conversation with people in the organization, and we try to prompt them to just throw it all on the table. Just talk about their day, their processes, because what happens is a lot of times they don't even well, they might not know what the systems are capable of, or they don't even fully recognize their true pain point, but they know it. They just don't. They've never really said it out loud, and so I have to do a really good job of not interrupting that process. It's like being like almost like a counselor. I let them just talk, and the only time I interject is if I see them start losing steam, meaning they're
Mm.
stuck on what they're saying, and I'll try to nudge them without leading them. And it's surprising. We matter of fact, I had a meeting this morning with a potential client, and we're building a they're like a high volume type call center. They do like
Mm.
B2B for IT companies, and our initially like latency seemed to be like one of their major pain points that they're having. What we actually found out was their main problem was uh, the the uh, the tree the dialer. So when the AI agent that is calling in, it's
Mm.
stopping because it doesn't know how to deal with, like, oh, press one, press two, and we found out that was like the biggest pain point in their system right now is how the AI
Mm.
agent can handle that part.
Mm. And what do you think? Like, so building AI call centers, we have some experience in that in my line of work as well. But what's the biggest challenge do you think that these companies are facing when implementing AI at scale?
Well,
Like, what have you seen where companies are stumbling with these implementations?
well, right now they're just stumbling because Well, there's a lot of tools out there that are sort of promising, these agentic AI call centers, and but they may have a limitation on the. I know how much like on their database, the RAG database or their knowledge base that they're using for the agents, and so um, uh, though they have that limit, they are having limitations. So what they're finding is the agent that's calling out, they kind of they can complete some stuff, they can answer some question, maybe make some appointments. But any time that conversation has any more than low complexity, it starts getting into medium and high complexity.
Mm.
So like medium complexity might be an agent that actually can handle like a full customer service interaction and actually maybe initiate a return or actually take an order or a closing agent, like an agent that's able to actually go and close. Um, they seem to hit limitations there, particularly from the tools that are out of the box, the platforms that do that. So what we end up having to do is we have to work with them and we have to actually start looking at a little bit more of a custom workflow development, and because they're not going to be able to just get a product, like a typical SaaS type product and just deploy it. We need to go in and we have to do that discovery because what happens is we have to build several agents. So you have one orchestrating agent that's who they're talking to on the phone, but that agent needs to orchestrate a lot of little agents to go do a bunch of little tasks and handle them
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously to make it work. And they're not there. I think is where there's some of the limitations. Which, of course, to build a bunch of little workflow agents, uh, you have to intimately understand what the workflow is in the organization and what's the data that needs to be given to that agent.
Yeah, it's almost like you're building mini MCPs for each of these customers, and then you have these MCPs that basically can be triggered by an agent to perform a task. Interesting. Yeah. Have you been working with MCP at all in your line of work, or how do you typically handle these mini agents? How do you invoke them?
Well, nope. I mean, getting into this realm is for me personally is
Mm,
I'm on a learning curve. I'm having to learn.
mm,
Uh, we're not coming from that background. Uh,
mm,
in my line of work, I do get involved in customers, a lot of customer service, setting up customer service, and maybe getting involved with call centers or getting involved. But I'm never really intimately involved. But we do have the ability to solve a lot of the problems,
mm,
uh, and so in my what I try to accomplish, because I don't know everything. Like, I'm
mm.
speaking to law firms and all these firms, and I'm not a subject matter expertise on all these subjects. Um, so what we try to do is acquire those subject matter expertise somehow. Either it's in the organization or internally. Like I work with an attorney, who's a
Mm.
veteran in the field, and he works with us. And so he's now acting as part of our AI factory concept. He's acting as an AI growth strategist now, so he can take his experience, work with the organizations, and it makes the turnaround on this workflow discovery a lot faster. So me, if I have to go in and I don't have this person, uh, I have to come up on this learning curve and work with them, and it really slows down the process.
Yeah, we were just having a conversation with another person about subject matter expertise being the main defensibility, and being able to do something at scale gives you like incredible amounts of knowledge that other people don't have. So if you do something well for law firms and you have all this data, your AI is going to be ultimately better than people who are just coming off the street and trying to do it because they think it's cool, right? So having
Mhm.
this subject matter expertise is really, really important. And so, how do you approach working with multiple organizations and like multiple verticals at once? So, do you have multiple subject matter experts who you utilize for different fields? Like, what industries do you primarily serve? Maybe that's a good question to start.
Well, I've worked a lot with around marketing. I mean, early on, I've worked with marketing agencies because that's I would say I'm a subject matter expertise in that. So that was easy
Mm.
for me to understand all those workflows in that process. The sales process, I have a lot of experience, and so I did there. But it's not really the ideal. Those aren't really our kind of our ideal customer because marketing agencies, they typically want products. They kind of want solutions. They don't want to get into developing new processes. So uh, how we scale up is we so like right now we're in the psychiatry, the psychiatry kind of getting into the medical field,
Mm.
um, and I just try to network as much as I can within that, and try to find the subject matter expertise, and then kind of try to and then go in and tackle that industry. We still have a huge void to fill within our organization to keep finding subject matter expertise. We're nowhere near uh, the level. I mean, we could 10x or 100x
Mm.
our the subject matter. But our process is if we start to discover. So I do this just through interaction, maybe going to networking events, things like that. And I find someone that is a subject matter expert, and they show a general interest in looking at AI. We bring them in and try to help them acquire the AI side of the business so they go
Mm.
about it. So that's what an AI growth strategist is, someone that has a subject matter expertise, and we convert them to someone that understands AI, what's possible in AI and these workflow discovery. And our big pitch there is what we're saying is let's just say an attorney wakes up, um, one day and they find out AI can complete most of their tasks. And so they're saying, well, man, I should have did something in computer science, or I should have been a developer, something, that they couldn't. Which development is probably not the best example of not getting losing your job. But what we're saying is like, well, no, your 20 years, 25 years experience, it's not wasted. Like you were just saying, like it sounds like you had that conversation, recently about there's just so much depth. I mean, there's tribal knowledge. There's just a knowledge that you can't just go, because what a lot of people say is like, yeah, I'm a subject matter expertise. So they go to ChatGPT and they do some deep research, right? And they pull up a document and they just start reading the document. They consume a couple audiobooks and listen to some podcasts and say, yeah, I'm a subject matter expert. And I'm like, there's only one way to be a subject matter expert: experience. You have to do it. You have to be in the trenches, and that's what we
Yeah.
look for.
Yeah, you have to do it at scale. And I mean, all external knowledge, like external facing knowledge that you can consume, that's all like very surface based knowledge because nobody is getting into these like really, really, really deep nuances. Like I come from a consulting background, right? And yeah, they say, "Oh, ChatGPT is going to replace consultants." It's going to help consultants write better decks, maybe, sure, but it's not going to replace like somebody with 20 years of experience who has been in the trenches, who has done like deliveries for multi-billion-dollar programs. It's just there's certain experiences, let's say at the legal level, where these people they've litigated very complex cases, and maybe it's now easier to litigate these complex cases with AI. But you still need people who are able to do that and who know every nuance, or who failed and tried and failed and tried and failed. I mean, for the next 10 years, that's not going anywhere. Maybe in 10 years, they'll be automated too, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, we joke. We joke internally. Sometimes we're like, we're promoting this whole AI growth strategist concept, and then we're like, well, but in 10 years, do you even need the AI growth strategist? So then what? But that's just not practical. Like you say, at scale, it's not. It's fun. Right now, it's just fun to think about, or kind of have philosophical conversations. But the truth is, yeah, you just can't replace that expertise. And like you said, like I do it, like I go, like I still have that fractional, consultant. I get into that consultant phase, and what happens is I go and I use ChatGPT or any particular tool that I doing that, and I'll put together information and reports and stuff. And really, all that's really doing is it's just what I can give somebody to kind of, it gives them a high level. But what I actually execute on, a lot of times I divert from these supposed documents. They're just meant to, because what happens is you have to, you have to kind of adjust fire when you're in the field. You're out there. You had it was a great idea when you're talking about it, but like you said, when it starts scaling, you have to shift.
Doesn't much. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, like I do lots of deep research, and it's a hit or miss. I
Hmm.
find deep like people are like online. Oh, deep research is game changer. I mean, sometimes it is, and sometimes you just have to do your own deep research because it's not that good or it takes too long, right? Just so let's kind of shift gears. So you sell AI to big companies, right? How do you help them identify ROI? Like, how do you convince them to like? I know everybody thinks AI is cool, but like, I'm sure there are pragmatic companies out there who say, so how do we get our return on investment? Because real time voice is expensive, right? Let's be honest. Like real time voice bots, they're not cheap, and other things are not cheap either, especially at scale. So how do you quantify that ROI and make them feel warm and fuzzy on the inside that they have to give you like a large check to do this?
Yeah, that is a tricky part. The big part is too is even when you do show or you can justify the ROI on paper, it's hard for people to pay for something they don't fully understand. Um,
Mm,
and it kind of makes sense. And so then especially if have to get into medium or high complexity workflows, it's going to require custom work, and so the company's going to have to make some commitments to that. The development team can only do so much to try to bridge that information gap. We can get some proof of concepts out the door, and do some things like that to try to help them. But at the end of the day, yeah, they're gonna have to spend money and take sort of a chance on that. So how do we kind of overcome that challenge? We That's where I kind of put in. That's where my fractional work kind of comes in, because what I do is I kind of start pulling AI away from it a little bit, and we start understanding like, well, what are the growth objectives? How are we going to? We start to understand it from more of a fundamental level, and understand what you're really trying to accomplish, so that we can find the workflows that we should go after. And it's not an obvious. It's obvious what AI can automate, or what. And I won't even use the word automate so much now, where you can put agentic systems in place. Everything you can, whether that's the right place or a practical place, and probably not. And so you have to. That's part of that sort of that assess part, right? We go in and we do that. And then the other thing that we're really focused on uh, overall is also in our adapt framework. We talk about the pivoting business model.
mm,
Try to do that internally. We're trying to build as much. We're trying to build things to where things are based on performance or like a usage,
mm,
based, right? And so we'll say, okay, we do need to do some custom work. So there is sort of a setup. There's a setup happening, but we've already got a lot of systems that we've developed that we can deploy. And when you succeed, we succeed in that situation. Um, in looking forward, that's only going to get better and better as we discover workflows and start solving problems in them. The barrier to entry is going to get lower and lower and lower, because we can go into organizations and say, hey, we've already had this use case, this here, here, and here. We can just deploy this system, and we would even have to look at them for any kind of setup. We would just say, okay, here's our system. We get paid this amount per something. And what it does is it just aligns the incentive for both of us in that system, and allows them to, because it offloads a lot of the risk at that point.
right. Friend of mine had a consulting company, and he would come in and say, "I can save you like 40%, 60%, like through cost cutting, and you guys give me 5%." And a few clients, and he made a lot of money doing that because he was really, really good at saving companies money. But yeah, I mean, the way that you pay, how do companies react to pay per use business model? Because some of them can cost quite a bit at scale. How do you manage that expectation versus the reality when they get that first big bill from running ChatGPT to 100,000 for 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 users? How do you manage that?
Um, Well, we are. We're still looking to see. We're still trying to get to that point where we're really seeing kind of how big, because we're just. I would say that we haven't even got into doing like high complexity uh, items yet. We're still just working through medium complexity and stuff like that. So some of these systems we're still working on really scaling up. So we haven't really hit uh, those points where we're starting to. People are like, wow, this is
Mm,
great. I just could have paid this much for it, and they would have done that. And so everything's still a little bit in that phase. Um,
mm,
we're doing that, but I would suspect that we're probably just a few months from. We're starting to get into those higher scaling, because the thing is we got to be careful. We're being very careful with how we deploy these systems, anyways, because we're still working through um, the weird thing. When you got hallucination, you have security issues. There's a lot of things that we're still kind of working through, and it's getting better. We're getting better and better at that, and there's new infrastructures coming out that help resolve some of that. But we're still we're still in that early stage of getting through that.
yeah, and I mean, based on some of the previous conversations, people are like companies are leaning towards SLMs, small language models, which you can deploy on their premise, just to offset the costs of it at scale. Because for many of these organizations, based on their needs, you really don't need like Anthropic, like Claude. You don't need like these huge models. You can run an SLM and it'll do the same thing. So that's what some of the people who are coming on the show have been talking about. There is like a big push towards the small language models that are specialized for specific industries. So yeah, that's kind of aligns with what you're saying because of security and other things.
Yeah, in the legal business, that's been that running you can run the small models, but then there's all, because they'll go through it's just an extreme. These cases that come up, and they get these just massive data dumps that they have to go through. That can get very expensive to run through all that data, but they also have client privacy issues, and different citation issues that they got to deal with. And so we've been having conversations about how we localize that, um, you know, with running smaller models and localizing the processing more on site. And then maybe, I mean, I guess the cloud is dependable, but those are just conversations. We haven't actually got into actually working through those, but we've just talked about, well, what if we have something localized, more local, to go through process this, and then you'll have you can avoid some of those privacy, potential leaks and things like that.
Yeah, that's what some of the people who come on the show have been saying. So, beside that, what other use cases have you seen in like agentic, beside the legal space, that you are excited about, or that you kind of see that people should be building in?
What are some agentic? Well, I mean, at a base level, we're really excited about like just voice UI as a whole. We're
Mm,
sort of, we've kind of moved away from just general Gen AI applications, and we're starting to get really focused on, and that's why call centers is a kind of an obvious place. But we're voice UI, and kind of what we mean by voice UI is at a base level, yes, we're building a call center, but it is a call center that can handle complex workflows. It's a call center that has lawyers on staff and accountants and all these subject matter experts there inside that call center answering a lot of questions. And why we're focused there is because um, we're also speculating that over time, I mean, the hardware market's going to kind of catch up to that. I mean, we're getting more people are talking about the smart glasses and things like that. Smart glasses are cute until you have agentic systems that can do stuff in the background.
right,
Um, yeah, and that's going to be driven by. I mean, voice is going to be, and also voice is like the oldest UI we know. As soon as humans have been communicating with each other, voice is the interface that we
right.
use for the most part. And it's never been possible for us. We've had to build all these complex systems to try to duplicate that in the digital world. Mouse, keyboards, GUIs, and everything else, right? But now a voice, we might be a lot less screen time. From a particular use case, I mean, we're trying right now. We're in the process of trying to be part of a clinical study for a
Mhm.
pharmaceutical drug. That's one system that we're trying to. So we're starting to get in a little bit of the medical field. We do have an SME that's helping us. They're the one of our SMEs has actually got the clinical study that he's running. Um, so, but we're right now what we're doing is trying to figure out what kind of regulatory backlash that we have to deal with. So that's where we always kind of try to ask that question. We always ask, well, what can we do all the way to the point where uh, legally someone has to sign off or someone has to be there. Like realtors, we talk about like realtors where, well, do you even need realtors? Well, in the state of California, you need a license. People have to have a license and they have to sign off on stuff. So you still have to have a realtor. So um, I guess I kind of didn't fully answer the exact question, but those are just all the kind of the things that were the kind of little barriers that we do find running into. Even if AI can agents can solve it, we still got some other complexity to deal with.
Well, yeah, I think to your point, there is a lot of everybody's excited about voice. I think voice is one of the biggest game changers. We are yet to see it at its full strength. I mean, we do get spam calls with AI voice now, that we do get, but having AI voice is now doing pre-screens and interviews, and it seems to be offending candidates. Lots of candidates really hate AI recruiters.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like they're not being valued, right?
Yeah.
Because the company uses like an AI recruiter, which is something I did not foresee. But I saw a lot of people on Reddit complaining that every time they're trying to get a job, and the AI recruiter comes in and starts to ask them questions, and they're doing this, basically AI agent pre-screens and AI agent interviews, and people get really offended by those. People really hate them, and people really feel like their value as humans are getting diminished. How do you manage the great replacement of people? Like, how do you feel like the world should manage that?
Well, actually, that is something that we think a lot about. I think that that's going to get better. I just people are offended or feel undervalued because they don't understand the value of what this agent might be able to do for them. It's just humans have a limited, they have a limited ability or information that they can call on or things they can do. Um, and so what we talk a lot about, and we've got some creative ideas that we're thinking. I can share those, but mostly we're just like, well, how should this, when this agent is calling up this AI agent, how should it approach the conversation? Um, like yesterday, I'll give you a prime example. It was an interesting concept. So we were talking about calling in to some sort of office, and there's always going to be these gatekeepers. And it's basically this AI agent, and it's calling a gatekeeper, someone in the front office, um, and they're going to say, "Well, I'm not going to transfer you." And one approach could be like, "Well, no, actually, we wanted to speak to you," because a human's never going to, if they can't get to a decision maker, they're just moving on to the next, right? But we were able to deploy these agents at scale, so it could just take another approach to that situation. I've always thought maybe it could be brutally honest. Come in and just say, "Hey, I am an AI agent," and maybe be a little bit, depending on the context, depending on the industry. I mean, it can be charismatic, it can be a little witty, things like that. Um, the more innovative approach that we're looking at is like we're currently looking to how we can build like closing agents, like agents that can actually close a deal. And my theory is that, well, a closing agent cannot close a person in the same way a human person does, right? They're just not going to be able to take the same approach. They're going to have a different approach. So I use the term that they're going to have to engineer the close. They're going to have to use a process to engineer that. And we think that there are some tactics that we can use to do that, because human behavior does have patterns. There's patterns that we can follow. There's different things that we can do, and so we're looking at different studies. We've even been digging into studies from like the 1960s, because they did a lot of psychological studies back then, and we're trying to pull from stuff like this and see if, well, can we have an agent engineer the cell? Can it have a process and a way to get someone there? Because like I said, they're not going to it's not going to be the same way that a person will react. It's just going to have to be different. But it is possible. I think that we can create these agents that do this, and what'll happen is over. And now, obviously, there's another thing too. Is in some situations people are offended, but in some instance, people are more willing to talk to an AI agent because they can't. Well, what are they going to do? They can't really get mad at an AI agent. They can't. They could hang up, but a person calls. They can be frustrated with them, or they put up a wall instantly. They got this huge wall. What is this person trying to sell me? What is this person trying to do? And there's a big block. With an AI agent, maybe that wall can be lowered. Lowered.
Well, I mean, AI agent you can engineer persuasion. You know how to persuade people, especially like
Yeah.
statistically. You know, like how to elicit. You know, like if you build out enough like of a checklist for it, where it checks out, it says, okay, this all these boxes are checked. Try for a close. Close doesn't work. Come up with new boxes to check. Come for a close. See how like probe them, like the same way humans close other humans. How do you do that? You figure out how do they feel, what do they like. The thing about AI is not just not going to fill the wall, right? So if AI is good enough and it's customized and personalized for that person enough, the person can curse at them, do whatever they want. AI doesn't care. It doesn't have the same, like there is no personal feedback loop with AI. It just talks and it does its job and it has no feelings, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I think from your standpoint, if somebody was to engineer an AI that closes really, really well, and that becomes like an agent or an MCP that you can call in, and just it comes on a call and it does the close, right? That could be like $1 billion opportunity. Just AI that does the closing part.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah. I think we see that. Yeah, I think, and in my opinion, is there's going to be a place and time where people are a person's going to call in and they're going to like, hey, can you just connect me to your guys' AI agent? I would rather speak to them, because it's just, once people start having a great experience,
Yeah.
I talk about, because from the sales funnel, I can go back to a little bit on the marketing side. I always talk about this idea of how a sales funnel, that experience could be, because right now, when you build out these funnel systems, you you have to take them through stages, and it usually requires some sort of automation with email, SMS. There's providing, there's just all these little stages, and it takes a lot of time, and things like that. If it's a voice UI, maybe it's on the phone. It's someone that wants a roof replacement. They could just get on the phone with that AI agent, and they could get through the entire sales funnel in that one conversation. Um,
Yeah,
but that,
real time. Like imagine you go on a site and instead of scheduling a demo, waiting for that guy to show up for the demo, having making the time yourself, at the time when you have the strongest intent, you press a button for a digital sale, AI joins the Zoom call with you, shows you a digital product, sends you a proposal, everything is done at the same time. There is no friction. Like it's so easy. Like and then you just like it, and the same thing can be done for like estimates. You take photographs or video of your roof, you send it that AI. That AI has the context of how much your company has been charging. It has all this context. It compares it. It sends you a proposal, and it tells you, "Here's what we can do. Here is the cheap way. Here is the mid way. Here's the expensive way. What do you propose?" Like, if it's fast, that could be like a reason for people to close, right? Because people don't like to wait. They just want to get something right away. The convenience of it.
well, yeah, and also, I mean, like we even think about like the idea, because I use Gemini Live all the time on my phone. I got a Pixel,
Mhm.
and I turn Gemini on, and you can turn the video on live, and I can walk around. So I was in Montreal, and
Hmm.
there's an underground city in Montreal,
Mm-hmm.
um, and we it was the first time I'd been there, and I didn't really know my way around it. So all I did is I just put my earbuds in, turned on my camera in Gemini Live, and said, "Here I am." And it just walked me through. It's like, "Oh, I see you're here. You're here. Go here. Take the blue line." And then on my way, I'm asking like, "Oh, well, we're heading down to this certain destination. Can you tell me a little bit about it?" Right? And it was live, and so and I do that all the time. Like I was doing some landscaping in my own yard, putting in some new plants, and I'm like, "Oh, what plant species is this?" And I was just showing the plant species, and it was saying, "Oh, it's this," and you could pick it up. And even when I went to go get the plant, I showed it. I'm like, "Well, which one's the best one?" And so we can take that experience in like a roof replacement where you just they turn on the camera and get through that whole interaction of evaluating the roof. And when it's done, it's going to send it to the company that grabbed the lead. And so a person would, even if they have to cut the call short, um, they're still going to probably go with the company that's already got all the contacts, and things like that.
Well, yeah, I feel like having like this will take away business from companies like Calendly and this calendar booking systems. Because if you can just have discovery call right away, and you can send them a proposal right away, or you can say, "Do you want to personalize them?" And then you can like, and it prepares the demo right away and it shows everything to you right away. That cuts so much friction out. Just you cutting, because like in our personal lives we're already doing that. Like when I want to check something, I send it to ChatGPT, I send it to Grok, or I send it to ChatGPT, and I ask it like, "Tell me, what do you see?" Like in a car accident, I send it the picture. How much do you think it will cost? It says, "Take it to a mechanic because you don't know if there was damage to the engine." Like it tells you things that you don't think about. Like, and that's the power of agentic, right?
It is. And what people don't know is it's possible for that one little interaction can have a lot of little agents going out and completing. One can be doing research, one can be handling your credit card. I mean, it's now with these
Background
agents,
agents, yeah. Yeah,
all this.
background agents all running at the same time, and the main agent just calls those MCPs, gets the tool results back, and yeah, provides you with that holistic experience. Yeah. So, Dustin, I'm gonna let you kind of close off this conversation with it. Like, if people want to reach out to you, if they are looking for an AI strategist to come into their business, can you just let them know like how to get in touch with you and who you're looking to meet and to connect with?
Yeah, you can go to our website. There you can reach out. You can reach out to us from there, or if you just want to directly get in contact with me, and just go to LinkedIn, and they can just send me a direct message on LinkedIn, and just reach out to you directly and let me know kind of what you're, just share what you're going on. I mean, I'm always just even people that are not necessarily looking to not all my interactions are meant to just be closing deals. I'm always just doing workflow discovery. I'm just trying to always understand the market. People that are SMEs and they're thinking that they need a shift. Uh, they need another pathway as these systems grow. Reach out to me, and we're always looking for more people to help us go do. We're just constantly trying to discover workflows from the people. Not from a deep research. Like we want to know someone that's been involved in that workflow. We want to hear it from them.
Right. Yeah, and that's the point of our podcast as well, just to find out what people are building and to give people helpful advice of what to build. All right, Dustin, thank you so much for joining the call, and really appreciate your time. And I hope we get to see you again and speak to you maybe in a year or so when you have progressed and you've done things at scale. I would be really interested to hear and some of your experiences in that.
Oh, sounds great. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dustin.